All right, MA Marignon, turn 46. Time to see if we get elfed this turn. I feel like I'm going to be asking that question a lot. Well, we definitely discovered a lot of sneaking units, although we are trying to increase our patrolling on a lot of our forts. And then these gems from Pelagia are for the trade that we discussed. And then we research and evocation so we can efficiently solve this monkey problem. Oh wait, no, not even quite. We need one more level. So yeah, we are, of course, going with the non-efficient route. And then we are doing some remote site searching. Hey, I think this is Enchantresses again. And this is also possibly where we already have a fort, which would be incredibly lucky if that were the case. Although a little unfortunate that we find it now that our fort is about to finish on the other Enchantresses, but hey, I'll take it. Speaking of patrollers, right, bringing in some wolves for patrolling, our summons that we've talked about. Let's see, Dark Knowledge we miss with, some more nature site searching that we miss with. An Eternal Pyre was cast successfully. That's good. We like that. Let the infinite money from infinite fire gems begin. Another one of our air summons, and then we found two sites with some manual site searching. And hey, speaking of fire gems, this is some more fire gems, so that is well timed. And then we get attacked by Bandar. So let's see. I'm not sure if this is the Throne Province. Okay, so he came out. So I was thinking that he was going to withdraw, right, after that last battle, but he instead has brought everybody forward. And let's see. I'm going to try to see if he has some gem reloads. So I definitely didn't click on all, 50 or 60 mages, but the only gems that I could find were on this fellow who probably, it looks like they haven't been reloaded. He just had some left over from the last battle, and I think this was the guy that put up Howl. This should be enough to put up Howl. So, we're going to be up against some Howl, and then, we discussed our madness, so let's see how this goes. Wasn't anticipating this battle this quickly. We are a little light on the fire gems, right? Because, we're trying to cast Eternal Pyre. We can see some Blood Vengeance coming back, but our Flaming Arrows does go up, goes up. There we go. Here's our first round of Fire Elementals. We'll hopefully be getting some more of those. Our Knights go forward. We're going to take some pretty heavy losses. Yeah, here's the Gifts from Heaven. We'll have to take a look at the commander situation after the battle to see, if our magic resistance gear helped us out. And then, yeah, we're mostly just dropping rocks on ourselves there. Now that we're in the dark, a lot of our rock droppers are not sacred, so they don't get the benefit of the bless that we have, right? The spirit sight. And we have a ton of crossbow bolts, which is definitely going to hurt our own units. And Ethereal is going to be good against the mundane damage from the crossbows, but the flaming part, the flaming arrows aspect, that will go through. And yeah, Bandar has some routes. We've just brought way more stuff than Bandar here, and I don't think the rocks are really doing us a lot of favors. Actually, you know what? This is kind of a cluster of Bandar troops. So, you can see we have a lot fewer knights. Although, yeah, some knights have made it to the back. So we're definitely killing some mages. I think overall, we still have a lot of crossbowmen as well. I think most of our army survived. We made our security bugs, just so that I feel better. I don't think they really helped us at all. Yeah, Howl did go up, but I don't think it mattered too much. We can see that, there's some fire evocations and stuff. I don't even know. Oh, these are PD. I'm where did these heavy infantry come from? We did have some bodyguards, so hopefully our mage losses are not too great. Yeah, you can see, right? This is Howl wolves. So definitely there was some distraction from Howl, but I don't think it was a huge deal in that battle. And maybe I jumped out a little too early. Wasn't sure where their thugs went. Okay, yeah, so we did defeat them. And let's see, they lose the majority. Still a significant amount of units retreat, right? That's about 40 things. Looks like about half the mages survive, roughly, a little less. Well, actually, with some of the other mages, probably about half the mages survive. A few of his summoned sacreds, in terms of his actual recruited sacreds, nobody survives. So that's good news for us. We find some gear that looks like our gear. So our losses are significant. But, considering how much we brought to bear, we still have plenty of stuff left. Our infantry losses are pretty high, which is unfortunate, right? You can see that, we lose 50 crossbowmen, so we have a ton of crossbowmen left over. They will serve us well for the remainder of the Bandar conflict, but, their time in the sun is pretty much over. So this is, too many crossbowmen at this point, but it's fine. They'll still provide siege strength and things like that. We lose 20 knights, which is rough, right? There's no two ways around that. 20 knights hurts. That's not quite half, but closer to half than I would like, but that still leaves us with 30 knights. And again, right, recruit anywhere. We're just starting to get our infinite fire gems online. We're planning on doing, a bunch of alchemy to get a ton of money, and we're, starting to build up some other citadels. So I'm really hoping that, we'll be able to replace knight losses like this relatively trivially in, 5 to 10 turns from now. So yeah, I would say overall, this is about, and then mage-wise, we lose a shaman, which is fine. We didn't actually give bodyguards to the shamans. We're hoping just, the bugs to cover them. Probably a wolf got them. We didn't lose any of the crystal mages, right? Now, I don't know how many, right? They got 13 kills, some of which were probably our own units, which of course are not going to trigger blood vengeance. So, I think the dropping of the rocks there is kind of irrelevant and probably not worth all the gems that we spent in terms of like forging magic resistance gear for those guys. We also lose 2 paladins, which is significant, right? They are expensive and, a lot of them were geared. Probably the 2 that died were geared. Now we find a good amount of that gear, but we, probably lose some gems in that process. But yeah, it's a nice thing to have these crystal mages, and we have the magic resistance gear. There could be some other blood vengeance blesses out there. But yeah, overall, probably a waste. Like I said, originally they were for the Anakites. But yeah, it was really nice that Bandar decided to attack rather than retreating into his forts. And now I think, that war is, I don't want to say it's done, but we're over the hump. And also potentially, right, like that's a pretty good result and by no means catastrophic. So hopefully that will send a message to anybody who might have been watching. In fact, that's probably what all these patrols are. Let's take a look at this other, because this is also an important battle in Xibalba. And Xibalba is actually attacking out in Phlegra, or against Phlegra rather, and this is on their capital, right? And let's see what we have here. So a ton of axe warriors, of course, some random independent units, maybe mercenaries, or no, actually, yeah, never mind. These are Phlegra's units. They're, the slave spearmen who, yeah, they're okay, I guess. Cheap on the upkeep, no doubt, and their stats look worse than normal because they're in a cave, so humans don't love fighting in the dark. And then some thugs here, like, yeah, we've seen these guys. I thought this golden spear was two-handed, but I guess it's not, because he's able to give him a vine shield. I guess they normally have a shield? No, well, this guy has been given a two-handed weapon, but still. So, like, overall, somewhat light kitting. Seems like reasonable kitting. He also has a white mage hero, so he twice-borned, one of his tyrants. All right, I think they're tyrants, right? Yeah. So, that's cool. And then like a few random archers, but a fairly substantial force against, no chaff, right? So this looks like Skelly spam plus maybe an air elemental. Not sure what this guy's doing here. Also a Bacab. So in the middle age, Xibalba gets like kind of some Atlanteans as well. And looks like he's here to do some nature casting. So yeah, I think this is going to be very dangerous for Xibalba, right? They have no bodyguards or anything like that. Okay, nice. A Foul Vapors play from Xibalba, I'm assuming. Yeah, the Bacab. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? The human units are not going to like Foul Vapors. And then, like, okay, nice. He's Phantasmal Army. So just trying to generate some chaff with those air gems. And it looks like mass flight or maybe just some flight coming from Phlegra, so he's able to get some Healit Axe Warriors out quickly, well, which would be nice in this situation, except they did end up getting hung up on the chaff, and then of course, like, yeah, the skeletons are being summoned. And now that this is the problem with hold and wait, and you want to hold and wait to get your buffs, but when you're getting cheesed, then you just sit around for 2 rounds getting poisoned. And I think this is going to work out for Xibalba pretty well. I don't think they're going to win, right? Mainly because of these guys who actually do have built-in poison resistance. Not a ton. Like, you can see that like the poison is stacking up on them, so they're by no means immune to poison, although it's going to take poison a long time to kill them, especially with the resistance. Although I think once the poison is on you, I don't think the poison resistance helps you at that point. It just helps you get poisoned less. But nonetheless, like, these guys are running forward. Assuming they don't get hung up on the undead, then, they'll be able to kill most of these mages pretty easily. Like, yeah, Xibalba has definitely lost a few mages. And like, yeah, I think once the Bacab dies, that might be it. Xibalba has to worry about an HP route because they didn't bring that much HP to the field. Let's go ahead and turn on team colored squares to make this a little easier to see. These models kind of look similar. But yeah, these guys are actually kind of tough to kill. Yeah, he's up to 28 protection, right? He's like a high level earth mage, so I'm sure he's put like iron skin, temper flesh, that kind of stuff on. Actually, we can see, yep, he's got temper flesh. So like, yeah, pretty tough to kill in melee. And like, I mean, okay, you see there's like a 26 there, although I think it was on a skeleton nearby, right? That's the other thing. These skeletons are going to help keep these Gigante tyrants busy. And like, these guys aren't particularly killy, right? They just have one attack apiece, I think, right? So yeah, they're going to kind of struggle against the undead, although they do have fire shield. Yeah, and that helps a lot, taking down the undead. Although the Vine Shield, I think, is a bit of an anti-synergy there, because the Vine Shield will prevent the undead from attacking. So the tyrants are still going to be busy, killing guys that have been Vine Shielded, and the guys that have been Vine Shielded aren't going to be killing themselves on the Fire Shield. So yeah, armies of Phlegra are routed, so that's an HP route, because most of their human stuff is dead at this point. So yeah, that was really nicely done by Xibalba. Foul Vapors is problematic, although you know what? Yeah, right, I forgot. The tyrants are berserkers. So Xibalba was technically defeated there, right? Phlegra wins, although they did lose one of their tyrants. And like, while, this is 8 mages that Xibalba loses, and Xibalba's probably somewhat down to it in terms of the mage count. Like, this still, for me, I think is a win for Xibalba. Not that this is a crippling loss for Phlegra by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely will slow them down, and that is good for us, because, like I said, a little bit concerned that they might be getting interested in us. And then we had some unexpected events. Oh, hey, we found people are happy, and they donated gold. That is nice. And then, somebody preaches that labor is for the wicked. That's not the end of the world. Okay, we have some peasants joining us, and we're going to get attacked by wild beasts. There's an ill omen, so there's unrest. That's fine. And then we lose to the wolves, of course, like Lion Tribe. And, peasants are not fantastic, although it looks, does any of them survive? No, he was killed retreating into enemy territory. That's fine. We weren't really interested in paying Domar anyway. And then let's take a look at some of these patrolling. So yeah, this is on top of the Throne Province, right? Because we were combining different elements. A good chunk of what we had in that province was patrolling, and it's a massive army. So Phlegra was watching, Yis was watching. Oh no, excuse me, this is on top of Mictlan, right? So yeah, like this is starting to get a little more concerning. And then Asphodel also in Mictlan, so that's good that we're getting rid of these scouts. And then yeah, this is Yis on top of the throne, and then this is Yis somewhere random. Don't know exactly where this is, but like this is a lot of scouts to be finding from Yis. So yeah, I think it's not a moment too soon that we won that battle against Bandar. And then I think we got another one from Asphodel. This is on top of the throne. So I think like at least 3 people saw that throne battle. But since it went well for us, that's now a good thing. And we didn't really show like too much of our research, other than like kind of what we already have, like in terms of where we're going is maybe less clear, which is always, a nice bonus. And then we are sieging some fort. Oh, right, the Tianchi fort. So moderately damaged, right? Now that we've actually moved some units on top of it, we're making some progress. Hey, and we've got a new famous hero. Sadly, he got heroic precision, which is basically useless on a paladin, but it is what it is. And I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. I guess let's talk Bandar first. I'm feeling a lot better about this whole situation. Definitely taking too long, but at least did come away with the win in the end. I mean, at least for the major battle, but they don't really have too much left, right? We discussed about how these are not actually mages. So, we're pretty much, this is it for their mage core, like 30 or 40 of them. A lot of which are just astral ones, which, we're not really too worried about. We saw how the Soul Slay communion, the battle was over pretty quickly, right? I went and looked, and by about turn 7, most of his army had been destroyed, and the route maybe was turn 8 or 9, and our knights on about turn 7 had already made it to the back. So even if some of the mages, even if the route hadn't happened, some of the mages were in melee rather than casting Soul Slay. So when you consider that a round or 2 is usually spent setting up the communion and maybe power the spheres, you just can't get off that many Soul Slays anyways, unless you can really like slow down the battle. In Bandar's defense, like they did have a large army, which tends to make the battle go decently long, but without like defensive buffs on both sides, really, large army fights tend to be pretty fast. Critically, neither of his thugs were killed, so we do still need to worry about that. And you can see, like, in a large army fight, we're not really too worried about his thugs, although sadly, one of his thugs did kill one of our paladins. Our paladin got hung up on some of his chaff, and not the case for his thug. So those guys continue to be the bane of my existence. And ironically, they're a lot more dangerous now that his army is dead, right? Because, like, again, we didn't kill these thugs. We just routed them off because of an HP rout. But there's not that much HP left. It's pretty much just the thugs. So there is a little bit of worry there. But now we finally have our summons in. And, we can only move up one. But I do think that like the lightning bolt is going to be pretty clutch. We're maybe doing a little too much setup. Aim is not a personal spell, so it might go wild and end up on like some crossbowmen because targeting. And she already has pretty high precision, but we're going to see higher precision would be nicer. And, we have so many crossbow bolts flying around. I feel like air shield, right? We're going to have her on advance and cast spells. And then, like, I don't know, Mistform, really would prefer not to lose these summons, so maybe a little bit too much defensive stuff. Of course, like, his thugs are going to be hanging out in the back, buffing themselves for a few rounds anyway. Lightning Bolt does have pretty long range, so we probably can kill them since she's fairly far forward positioned. But anyway, so we're going to have some Lightning Bolt, and that will hopefully protect us. Now, I mean, it's only one Lightning Bolt caster, so there's still a little bit of concern. We are summoning more of these in, but at least for this turn, it's going to be a little concerning. Now, that said, we do still have two Paladins, right, with the kamikaze kit. And sadly, of course, like our hero, who it doesn't really matter because the heroic trait that he got isn't very useful for him, but of course he got diseased, but he'll survive for a few more turns anyway. And again, we saw how pretty much when these guys take hits or even when they deal damage, they tend to die immediately anyway, so you still be able to get in a few hits for a few turns. And then on the final thing is we do have one Soulslay guy here who I'm feeling better about, right? We've given him some boosters and some penetration gear and some magic resistance gear so that hopefully he'll be able to actually push a Soulslay through and then not die as a consequence. So we've got 3 different answers, none of which are perfect, but hopefully with all of those things combined, our army will not bounce to his thug. We have cut down significantly on the casters that we're bringing. We're sending a lot of casters home, and we're sending some of the casters up this direction. We've also got an Earth Mage coming out here to handle that Hall of the Mountain King event. The rest of these guys, we've given them a bunch of fire gems just in case, right? We're still pretty worried about the Sea Elves. So, if they do show up in, the province where these guys are at, as we move them up, they're headed towards Mictlan, right? Just to, our hold on this area is still not fantastic, so a few more mages up there would be nice. They can also do like a little bit of site searching possibly on the way up for some fire sites. So anyway, sending some mages up in that direction, also sending a few mages into Arcocephaly, because again, our hold is kind of tenuous over here, and Asphodel, I don't know, this is making me a little nervous. They're probably just patrolling down Unrest, I'm guessing. But they do have, right, Centaur, which are stealthy. Theoretically, we have a non-aggression pact. I don't think they're the kind of player that would break it, but maybe they would. So probably it's nothing, but this is making me a little bit nervous because I'm not totally sure what these units are doing here. Speaking of units and borders and nervous, there's this stack over here from Abyssia, who we also have a non-aggression pact with, but I think is also subbed out, and the sub hasn't reached out to me. So yeah, I should probably talk to that sub. I'm pretty sure the sub is, in fact, like our host, who is Asphodel. Not 100% on that situation, and definitely not 100% sure, like, what. This is a lot of stuff to just kind of be hanging out on this province. He might also be having thoughts about, like, Shiniyama's lands that Shiniyama just picked up from Tianqi. But, of course, like, this is a fort that we've been sitting on for a few turns, right? So I am a little bit nervous about that. In relation to our lack of siege strength, we're actually just going to summon in a few Great Eagles. This is a little early, right? Like, we don't have very much air income, so we can't support this for very long. But just in case we do get attacked, a few Great Eagles would be nice. So she's probably going to summon Great Eagles for like a turn or two, which will help us crack this fort, and in the worst case scenario will help us hold up the walls for a few turns against this Abyssian force. And then she'll go and site search for air, which is what we have one more up here. And she is moving out to site search for air. And we're doing, you can see that we do not have very many astral pearls left, because we've done like another round of summoning, and that will probably call it for the time being, because those ladies are expensive. We will summon in more eventually, but yeah. And then a lot of this other movement is just site searching. Here's the wolves, right, where we lost this province. So we're just going to send in some knights that we recruited to remove those wolves, because we do get some, a fire gem. We need fire gems. And then, the Whispering Woods, right, where we can get enchantresses from, it is actually already on one of our forts. So that is lucky, but it is sad because we are about to finish the palisade here, because we were building this, we were going to potentially build it somewhere else, but then it's like, okay, enchantresses, that'd be really nice. That said, like, our magic diversity is poor enough, and these enchantresses get enough paths in other paths of magic that we need, that having 2 forts recruiting these ladies, especially since they're slow to recruit, is actually probably still all upside. So I should stop complaining. That is another fort that I do not have to recruit witchmaster or witch hunters out of. Speaking of grandmasters, please stop randoming into fire. Thank you very much. And then we're doing, troop recruitment up in Mictlan. We're finally starting to get our scales in, and we're going to finish the first level of upgrade in 2 turns, and then we'll start on the Citadel. I'm pretty sure it can still turn into a Citadel, because this Mictlan has like slightly different forts, right? So he's building a fortified city. So I'm not 100% sure that you can go from a fortified city to a Citadel. I think so. We'll find out. Also, we are going to try to hunt for some elves. I don't actually know if this works, so we built this stone sphere so that we can do some scrying, just because it's really useful. I like having that item. But we've also given this fellow a lightless lantern, not because he can research, and not because we like wasting research, although I do often do that, but because the item gives spirit sight. And Yis's Sacreds, unlike many elves, are not actually stealthy. They just have glamour, and glamour hides you when you're in your own territory. But if you have Spirit Sight, you can see units with glamour. So I'm hoping that works like through the astral window. I don't actually know if it does, and then of course I don't actually know if there are any Yisian Sacreds here or not. So we'll take a look, and then we'll probably try like the same trick on top of Yis's capital, just to try to verify like if it does work. We probably won't bother if we do find like some of their Sacreds on this fort, but I figure surely there's going to be a few glamored units just hanging out in their capital, and so if we don't find any on this fort, we'll just verify whether or not this trick works. And if it doesn't work, we're actually going to forge a shroud of Battle Saint so we can make somebody sacred, and we're actually going to make this troubadour here sacred, and that will give him spirit sight. And so like same kind of thing, he's going to start to cruise around like these Yisian lands that we can. We might actually even give him like an underwater breathing item so that he can tool around underwater. But anyway, we want to try to find these elves. And of course, in explaining all of this, it has dawned on me that it's not possible for Yis to have snuck all of their sacreds into our lands. Yeah, and in fact, I thought that their thugs, were stealthy, but they're not actually. So they almost have no like stealthy units or commanders. Just they're slow to recruit capital only Morgan sorceresses, who they at 420 gold a pop. They're probably not using those to infiltrate our lands in like a stealthy alpha strike. And if they are, then I think our chances are pretty good for winning the war. So actually, it's funny. I knew that Yis had fewer stealthy units than most elves. but I just, it's like, oh yeah, elves, like obviously they're infiltrating your lands, even the pretender name, right, around elves, watch yourselves. So we are taking that advice, but I think, yeah, maybe it's not as much of a concern as I thought. This is still a fairly large stack on our border, so I don't think it's crazy to be hunting for like his sacred stack, but I do actually feel better now that I am pretty sure that we haven't been completely infiltrated by elves. Also in the feeling better category, I mean, obviously Phlegra's loss, or sort of loss. Yeah, interesting. It does look like his fort is unlocked, but the battle report does say that he was defeated, so not really 100% sure what happened there. I mean, obviously, we talked about that battle and how it was a good result for Xibalba. But yeah, Phlegra is going to be more busy, and it looks like this group of Helit Axe warriors, right, has moved off of our border. There is a tyrant here, but he's probably just doing site searching. So yeah, less concerned about getting attacked by Phlegra. And then we can see a ton of bards here on our border from Eriu, probably doing some site searching. They are definitely an elven faction that has their commanders are stealthy, and I believe they recruit from any fort. Yeah, they definitely are. So these are the elves that we would have to worry about, like normal elven things. That said, like my relations with this player are pretty good. We have a non-aggression pact. I think they have like plenty of other more attractive wars. Part of the problem with Yis is that this is kind of where their land presence is, and we're pretty close to their capital, whereas for Eriu, we're not far from their capital, so over here somewhere, but we're not close, and they have a lot of other ways that they could go with a lot more weaker neighbors, and that could also be true for Yis. I don't know as much about their neighbor situation. Anyway, the siege of Ashdod is about to be finished, it looks like. I mean, the fort is cracked. We'll see if we see a storm here. Also, we took a look at what Agartha has on top of Jotunheim's capital. And I don't know what happened to Agartha to result in this stack, but I definitely feel his pain, right? Because, I ended up in a similar place. So, yeah, it looks like that was probably a tough war, but that's a pretty convincing stack. So I think Jotunheim is in trouble here. And I think that covers the majority of our scouting. Yeah, we see a small stack here from Man. Looks like he's making some corpse constructs, which is normal enough. Also, it looks like Fascia's capital is under siege from Vanheim, although that could very well just be a thug locking it down. So we are moving a scout in that direction, to see how dire it is. We can see that the fort is not cracked though, so Fascia, I think, is in trouble, especially since Asphodel is in their cap circle and has forted this throne. So I don't think Fascia is long for this world, but I'm also not sure how well Vanheim is doing. So this war may drag on a little while longer, at least until someone else decides to step in. It would not surprise me if Asphodel decided that, hey, why don't we take this coastline? Then again, maybe they feel it's kind of nice to have a buffer against the ocean. So hard to say. With all the undead units that they get, Asphodel can go underwater more easily than a lot of land nations. So I think that covers it, other than research, which I have rejiggered. So we've pushed Evocation 7 way down. We don't really need that at the moment. It's always sad to not waste, but kind of waste a little bit of research like this to not complete a level of magic. But I just think alteration is going to be a much bigger deal for us. We should be able to, we may have to do a little bit of, jumping through some hoops. But with our summons now, Fog Warriors is on the table, and that is a pretty useful spell for us, and also not something that people necessarily expect from Marignon. Mass Protection is going to be pretty nice, specifically on our sacreds. On our mundane troops, because we do so much fire magic, it's a bit risky. It's just going to increase our casualties, especially for our infantry. But for our flagellants, who are going to get, I think, 10 fire resistance we put on the Bless. With Mass Protection, they'll only have 5 fire resistance, but they'll actually have some armor and so won't die immediately, right? So if we layer Mass Protection and Fog Warriors onto our flagellants, all of a sudden they're maybe not scary, but they're much more effective. And when you add on to the fact that they're going to get, all the other, we don't have shock resistance. But they're going to get cold resistance, and they'll get some other stuff. They'll get our bless, which will make them, even better than normal and more likely to survive on, a really nasty late game kind of battlefield. And then, speaking of keeping flagellants alive, if we go up to 8, we get Will of the Fates, which is a really useful spell for us. So yeah, I just think Alteration is going to be more useful for us. There is an argument to be made. I don't think we're going to have to race for artifacts, and I also don't think that the alchemy artifact is going to be one of the first artifacts that people forge. But anytime you're gonna go to construction 8, the earlier you would do it, the better, because obviously the artifacts are unique, so you can only forge one, and once it's forged, if someone else forges it, then you can't. So the earlier you get there, the better that it is. And if we're gonna go there anyway, we might as well try to pick up some of the other most useful artifacts. So there is an argument for pushing our construction research farther ahead. So we'll see. For now, I think I'm going to leave it as is, but maybe we'll only go to Alteration 7 and then push up Construction ahead of Enchantment. Enchantment 7 is mostly for Serpent's Blessing, which we don't really need right now, but Asphodel's out there. Obviously, we just saw someone get gassed. We are definitely a faction that people would be interested in casting Foul Vapors against, but we do have poison resistance on the Bless, right? And as we transition more to a completely sacred army, right? Most of our mages are sacred, and our infantry soon is going to be, maybe not soon, but when we move to the flagellants, they'll be sacred. Then obviously the knights are sacred, and the crossbowmen we're pretty much going to phase out. So Serpent's Blessing is nice, right? We're going to be bringing in eagles, and we're going to have independent mages that aren't going to be sacred. So battlefield wide poison resistance is going to be relevant and nice, but maybe not quite as critical as it normally would be. And then eventually Evocation 7 Firestorm, that would be a nice tool to have in our back pocket. So it's still on the list. So yeah, I think that covers turn 46.